Now, the President has announced a date for local government elections, Wednesday, the 27th of October. Just yesterday, by-elections were held, the ANC retaining most of its seats. But at the same time, service delivery protests continue. Municipalities such as EMFULENI, a stark example of the very serious challenges that continue to face local government. Let's talk now to economist with think tank Municipal IQ, Corin Heeser. Corin, thank you so much for joining us. So, Municipal IQ monitors the country's 278 municipalities. We've got about 6 months now before the local elections. The by-elections held yesterday. Would you say they were a bit of a litmus test for the coming poll? And if so, what have they told you?
Well, I think the first and important thing we already saw in November last year is that elections can be held in a safe, COVID-friendly environment. I think that's positive, and the IEC has been working quite hard on technology to speed up just really detection around any fraudulent activities. So it's positive from a technical point of view that it can be done in safety. I think that the real issue will be around campaigning and how to ensure that that takes place in a safe way. So that's the first lesson that we can take from it. The second one would be that it's varied, and one always has to be wary about by-elections because they are quite specific to particular municipalities. But generally, I think the turnout could be considered positive for by-elections. So I think the important lesson there is that South Africans still have faith in the election ballot. I think the third key finding, just broadly speaking, broad brushstrokes, would be that the ANC support is resilient. It really, despite the various factional issues within the party, there was strong support in many wards and a few successful cases where the ANC took support from other parties. So that was good. And then just a sort of footnote around opposition parties was that the EFF performed very well in a number of wards, not well enough to win a ward, which has almost always been the case. But what we would see in local elections across the country is we would see that support translating into PR councillors.
All right, so let's focus on the real challenges facing municipalities. EMFULENI is a prime example in the Vaal area. It's under administration. It's had years and years of problems. There are attempts to try and sort things out, but it doesn't seem to come right. What is at the heart of problems at places such as EMFULENI? Is it as simple as saying, well, it's just corrupt, or it's just a lack of skills?
I think corruption really is at the heart of the problems that have taken place over the years, and the lack of focus on service delivery, which has had catastrophic results environmentally and leading to pollution, and that's really made it very clear the extent and scale of the problems. The problem, because of that corruption and poor governance over many years, really resulted in quite catastrophic implications for aging infrastructure, which is why we saw the pollution issues that we've seen. And the key concern around that aging infrastructure is it takes an incredibly long time to correct. And alongside that aging infrastructure has been a degradation of financial resources. So there isn't really the capacity, financially speaking, to rehabilitate infrastructure to the extent that it's needed. And one illustration of that very serious financial position is massive debt owed to creditors, not least of which is Eskom.
We also see an increase in service delivery protests at this time. I'm wondering what difference service delivery protests make, and I'm wondering what difference elections really might make. Yes, we have seen some shifts of power, certainly in big metros over the years. But if you think back to someone like Andries Titani 10 years ago in Vicksburg, community activist, and he died. He was part of a protest over service delivery issues.
Well, Andries Titani is truly a tragic case because all the issues that he raised 10 years ago remain, and in fact are more pronounced in Sesotho municipalities. So it's very heart-wrenching that really in many respects his legacy continues not to have amounted to much in the municipality he was protesting against. I think service delivery protests since over the past 10 years have become a pronounced feature of local government. There's something that will definitely be set to stay. What we do see traditionally over election years, or local government election years more specifically, is we actually tend to see a lull in protests. There is more focus on local elections. We've seen quite furious activity in Johannesburg over the weekend, fixing potholes. So we can actually see a surprising fall-off in service delivery protests. I'm not sure whether we will this year, primarily because of COVID-19. And around the world, what's seen is there's a lull period around the pandemic, and then after that, there's a period where inequality and poverty widen, and with that, we see protests increase.
What are the issues that voters ultimately take to heart before they place their mark? Is it as small to some as a pothole? Do issues like political infighting, the collapse of a council like we've seen in TSHWANE last year, what are the issues that motivate people, A, to go to the polls, and then to either change their vote or keep supporting a party that might not have given them what they need?
It's an interesting feature of South African service delivery protests is we'll often see a protest against a particular councillor, and then we'll see that community going and endorsing the same party very soon afterwards in a local government election. And what we can surmise from that is that there is a distinction between councillors and local leadership and the party. And we've seen up until now quite profound party loyalty across various lines. So I think, regrettably, because local government elections are an ideal place to take the issues around service delivery at a very local level, be it potholes or the way in which budgets are formed at the local level, municipal level, we have tended to see that really recede in the background, and we see party affiliations come to the fore. We may see a change in these elections. We may see a rise in independent candidates. We certainly, in some provinces like the Western Cape, there are smaller parties that can be kingmakers, that can be quite pivotal in local elections. So there may start to be a shift, but traditionally it's very much national issues and national party affiliations that have played the predominant role.
Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Economist with think tank Municipal IQ, Karen Hiza.